Oh, hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Depending on which part of this country that you're in, you are watching Rebel Roundup, our daily news and opinion show. I am your regular host, Sheila Gunn Reid, and I'm joined today by our regular Tuesday and Wednesday co-host, my very best friend in real life, Lise Merle from Regina, Saskatchewan. Lise, how's it going?
Hello, my darling Sheila Gunn Reid, and hello, Canada. Well, Sheila Gunn Reid, we have a problem because today's lineup has my pantyhose in a bunch. Okay, not often can I claim that reading the lineup has just got me on have got my teeth
Yeah.
on edge today's, and I can't wait to get into it with you because, as always, I feel better after this is my therapy. Okay, I don't go to therapy because I get to do this twice a week, and I can't wait to get into it with you.
Yeah, the show is just wild today. And, it's easy to feel crazy when you're looking at this and our public institutions are saying these things. And you're like, wait, no, it's the kids who are crazy. It's not, it's not me. And we're here to help you feel that way, that you're not
Yes.
alone to look at this stuff and think, man, society's crazy because society's losing its marbles and it's real easy to want to check out of it altogether. Trust me, I know. But before we get to that, I want to tell you how you can support Rebel News, but also get involved, have your say. We're going to democratize the show a little bit. So if you're watching us on the wonderful free speech platform of Rumble, who allowed us to be monetized when nobody else did, and they don't actually care about your political viewpoint, which is, I think, how you want a social media platform to be. You want it to be the free and liberal exchange of ideas, small L liberal, the marketplace of arguments, and let the best one win. That is Rumble. So if you're watching us in Rumble and you want to get involved in the show, have your say, hear your comments read on air. You can leave a Rumble rant if it's over the $5 US cutoff. We are making it obligatory. We must read it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our best, time permitting. And usually, if I'm not running up against a meeting or if the studio isn't required for other things, we do get to them all. So that's how you can support us because, as you know, unlike our, I was going to say peers, I think peers is probably the right word. In the mainstream media, we'll never take a penny from the government to do the work that we do. And if you are watching us on YouTube, where, as I say frequently, I believe it's a glitch that we are remonetized over there, but let's roll with it for as long as possible. You can leave a super chat. Same rules apply, but there's also an additional way to support us if you're watching the recorded version of the show. You didn't catch us live because you were gainfully employed somewhere. Fine. But you can watch the recorded version of the show and leave a super thanks. That's their paid comment. So we're turning the show over to you to have your say, and I'm sure you're going to have many, many, many opinions about the stuff that we're going to talk about today. For example, this. Let's do the first thing because it is infuriating. Did you know that according to the National Law Enforcement Agency, and I believe the FBI sort of got in trouble for saying something similar not all that long ago. They were basically made a laughing stock, and the RCMP upper echelons, the brass, not the normal guys who live and work in your community, their kids play on your hockey team, not those guys, not the guys you see down at the gun range. These are their bosses. So reserve some empathy for the regular boots on the ground RCMP officers right now. They have decided that if you, let's say you believe that family is the cornerstone of society, that government should fit in a teacup. Well, you just might be an extremist. I bet you didn't know that. Let's hear it from the RCMP.
And when you're finally, I wanted to ask, when you're talking about seeing individuals engage in that anti-authority and perhaps escalating their beliefs or their motives in that level, I'm wondering what the public can do in order to be vigilant, or what they can do to help in trying to ensure that there is safety and security on that front.
Well, radicalization in general quite often will show by people isolating themselves and changing their behavior, like changing what they're saying on a subject, like becoming more extremist. Like, and if someone you know was very believed in equal gender rights, but all of a sudden are leaning towards like traditional values, and that might be a sign that they're becoming more extremist. But we also have to remember that having the most extremist views is perfectly legal in Canada, and that it's only acting with violence to prove that view that becomes a criminal offense.
Well, thank you so much for offering some clarity here. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
That is
Okay. This woman is an argument for not having women in positions of power herself. Am I being an extremist
you.
right now? Like,
Thank you.
when I see people like that, women like that, who could quite likely just be your regular old DEI hire, checked a lot of identity boxes, I'm like, this makes me feel like maybe they shouldn't have given us the vote when I see stuff like this. So what they're talking about here is some Canadian Armed Forces members were charged because it's a court, and again, nothing's been proven in court. I don't have all the details, but the charges are related to potentially starting a militia and seizing some land. Now, that's what the RCMP are saying. The facts have not all been hashed out in courts, but that's not what she was talking about here, because she said radicalization in general might be when someone changes their viewpoint on certain issues. So being open-minded, radicalization. She says, when they move from being open-minded about gender roles to being more traditionalist.
And start talking about it. And
then
start talking
about it.
Right.
So let's say you went to church. You all of a sudden have found the Lord, and now you think there are pink jobs and blue jobs, and mom's place is best with the children, and dad's place is best being the hunter-gatherer, i.e. out in the workforce. You have just found yourself to be an RCMP labeled radical. Like if you start eating right, working out, and mom quits her job to be at home with the kids instead of shuffling off to the child prison of daycare, you are a radical of some sort. Imagine being a normal RCMP officer. And this is who's in charge.
Could you imagine being one of the normal RCMP officers and hearing this out of your institution, the institution that's supposed to uphold and represent you? Could you imagine? Like, never has the RCMP given itself a better reason to be absolutely abolished in Canada than this right here. Because when she talks about traditional values, what she's actually talking about is conservatism. Conservatism and traditional values go hand in hand. We're not talking about fiscal conservatism. We're talking about cultural conservatism.
Right.
And when people change or start talking about their beliefs, it is because they are looking for community and validation.
Right.
Now, a great many of our viewers will agree with me when I say there are only two sexes. There are men and there are women.
Right. Gender is
And
not real.
Gender is not real. It is
Right.
it is a left-wing construct that has had ruinous consequences to our society and our culture, in Western society. And that so many of us are speaking about it publicly, are willing to be speaking about it publicly. This is a real problem for captured institutions like the RCMP, who have bought the DEI scale wholesale. They've bought into it 100%. But again, nothing has shown the institutional degradation of the RCMP quite like this woman. Congratulations, lady. Look what you did. You've got the whole country talking about you. You've got the whole country talking about you. Good job, lady. Good job, DEI hire. Way to go.
Right. This is right up there with the land acknowledgement before they talked about the missing kids for RCMP's greatest hits in the last month or so. Yeah. And what does this do for young men and women, quite frankly, who are considering a career in law enforcement, and then they see this and they're like, wait, but I go to church. I'm a practicing Catholic. I guess this institution is for just crazy people? I guess so. And so now you have this it will be the institution of the RCMP abandoned to the lunatics, because all the normals are like, you know what? Maybe not. This is not for me.
I'm not gonna find success within this institution, considering my deeply
Radical
held
viewpoints.
deeply held beliefs, deeply held conservative beliefs. The RCMP has had staffing issues for the last at least 10 years. They are in a staffing pit as it pertains to getting their members to be able to sign up to go to more remote areas. And this is going to do nothing to help their staffing issues. So again, I'd like to congratulate that woman, that spokesperson from the RCMP, for running her mouth like this and showing us exactly who the RCMP is.
Yeah.
Way to go, guys. Way to go.
Again,
Another
this is-
reason not to trust a public institution in Canada, because they tell us who they are.
Yeah. And again, this is not a reflection of the guys who actually do the real policing. Yesterday, I dragged the nerds at the firearms program at the RCMP. Now I'm dragging the DEI hires who go on national news and make pronouncements that people with traditional values are extremist. And
Unreal.
I know this is further on down in the schedule, but I think it dovetails nicely into this because, as you know, in Alberta, we have recently announced the creation of our own provincial police force.
Us too in Saskatchewan. Yes,
yeah.
the Saskatchewan Marshal Service.
So ours is we have a police, like we had our sheriffs previously, but this expands their roles and they're there to fill in the gaps. So now it's more of a provincial police service as opposed to like peace officers who are filling in the gaps. And we have a police chief now for that person. And this sort of detaches us away from the madness of what's going on. And so our new municipal affairs minister, Dan Williams, he was the former minister of mental health and addiction. He has said this yesterday: keep away from wokeness and DEI. The new minister warns municipalities. So Dan, he did incredible work at addictions and mental health. In fact, I think the entire ministry staff in the office there were in recovery. And they took a recovery focused approach. None of this were given drugs to drug addicts. And where the federal government fell down, Alberta stepped up. For example, Indigenous health is a federal mandate, but they weren't building treatment beds.
They weren't doing anything. Yes.
They weren't building treatment beds on reserve. So Alberta stepped up and did it. And we said, you know, like they might hand out drugs in BC, but they'll serve as a good foil to what we're doing here. And our overdose rates went way down because we don't abandon people to drugs. So Dan said, I want to make sure that Edmonton and Calgary are doing their jobs. There's not a left-wing and right-wing way to plow a road or deliver water or treat wastewater. These are just the obligations of municipalities. But if they start veering into plastic straw bans and DEI policies and legalizing business licenses for brothels, then they're way off base from the responsibility of a municipality. So we can't know, he says, we know we can't have tertiary care and all sorts of high-level care in every rural town, but we need to make sure that these big city centers are working for rural residents as well as urban residents. And he says, the article goes on to say, the elimination of programs deemed DEI has become a major thrust under the Trump presidency. Those against DEI says it discriminates against people whose identities don't fall into certain categories, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, Edmonton and Calgary both license body rub parlors and practitioners, escorts, and exotic dancers. Plastic bans or restrictions, meanwhile, are in place in 8 Alberta municipalities. And he says, if big municipalities stay in their lanes, do their jobs, and do them well, I have no interest in getting involved. But if they're way off in left field, making up all sorts of problems that don't exist instead of paying attention to the urgent needs of their residents and of all Albertans as hubs, community centers, and commercial centers for the entire province, then the province needs to step in. Perfect. Yeah.
Incredible. Can't say it any better than that. What the government of Alberta is acknowledging is that anytime DEI gets involved in a public institution, they abandon their mandate,
Right.
especially as it pertains to municipal governments. So when you dump all of your resources into DEI initiatives in a public institution, you are taking away time, services, and resources away from what you are actually supposed to be doing. And as governments wake up to this, they are realizing just how quickly taxpayer funds have been rerouted into crazy vanity projects by public servants who, especially through COVID, this especially accelerated through COVID, who were looking for make work projects for themselves, sitting on their thumbs, in their home offices going, well, what can we do to stay relevant? What can we do to stay progressive? Well, they adopted all of these DEI programs. So it is excellent that the government of Alberta is tackling this issue, that we are seeing the end to DEI in some government institutions. And the more that we can encourage our provincial governments to do away with this garbage, the better off we will all be.
Right. I don't think municipalities should be paying consultants gajillions of dollars to have high-priced internal struggle sessions with their staff over DEI when the pothole on your street is so big that it will knock the earrings out of your ears. And that's exactly what Dan Williams is saying here. And if these municipalities think he's screwing around, he's not. Alberta will dissolve your municipality because municipalities are creatures of the provincial government. They exist at the leisure and pleasure of the provincial government. They will dissolve your school board. They will dissolve your city council if you don't listen. And it has happened here. And when the city of Calgary went around the province to make a deal with the Trudeau government for housing money that was tied to green initiatives, the province stepped in and said, the hell you will. And if you think you are, you've got another thing coming. So these municipalities should take these threats very seriously, because not only are DEI programs discriminatory, they're an absolute waste of taxpayer money.
That's right.
And time and resources. Do what you're supposed to do and nothing else. And I know I'm probably on an RCMP watch list now for saying that.
Well, welcome to the club, Sheila Gunn Reid. Welcome to the club. But I do hope that what Alberta is doing is contagious to other provinces. I can speak for Saskatchewan as an example. Saskatchewan has a bunch of agencies, provincially funded agencies, that are absolutely captured by DEI. The Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities. This is the organization that oversees all of the RMs in Saskatchewan. They're celebrating Pride Month. Sask Sport, the volunteer-led organization that oversees all amateur sport in Saskatchewan, absolutely committed to DEI. Every single one of our urban school boards employs reams of these, $200,000 employees to sit around having struggle sessions about gender and sexual identity. The government of Saskatchewan should get on board the Alberta program right now, defund everything having to do with DEI, absolutely everything. If your job description has the words diversity, equity, or inclusion in the job description, gone. We need this behavior to be contagious across Canada, because we have identified this, the citizens of Canada, as a scourge on our society, and it must end as soon as possible.
Completely. Let's go to this next. The Mark Miller tweet. So Mark Miller.
No, your tell-off was so good. It just gives me life.
Mark Miller, the idiot who is now in charge of the Justice Committee, who, as we know now, did 0 immigration checks when he was at immigration on the Egyptian terrorist, ISIS terrorist, who butchered someone in an ISIS propaganda video, a crucified prisoner. was given citizenship only to 1 month later, allegedly, don't sue me, Mr. Terrorist, only to 1 month later, allegedly plan a major terrorist attack with his son, who was granted asylum after being deemed not a credible applicant. He went into New York, walked back in, I guess through Roxham Road, must be, walked back in and said, okay, fine, you're fine. And then he and his son planned allegedly a terrorist attack on Toronto Jews. And they were within hours from that. They admit they never checked. Now, so he was at immigration, oversaw the collapse of the immigration ministry. Now he tweets yesterday, immigration caps are contributing to lower asking rents in Canada, says the CMHC from the Globe and Mail. If the rest of us said that like a year ago, hey, the laws of supply and demand also apply to housing.
Yeah.
And so you need to pump the brakes on this, not because we hate immigrants, it's because we can't house them. Supply and demand also works on wages. Oversupply of labor drives wages down. So you have inflated housing and lower wages to pay for that housing, and it causes a catastrophe. So now all of a sudden he says, ha ha ha, look at our immigration caps, which are where, by the way, you were the immigration minister. You actually could have imposed those caps at any given time, but you didn't. And so I said that he is, what did I say? Like an arsonist showing up to a fire. He started with a bucket of water and then claiming to be a firefighter. Like, this is a problem that you started.
You created.
You did it, and then you're like, look, we're capping it. And it's, as Chris Dacey points out, I think in the comments there, if you had said this to Mark Miller 90 seconds ago, 120 seconds ago, he said that you hate immigrants. Yep. If you said, hey, just would you mind pumping the brakes? Actually, yeah. So from September 19th, 2024, Liberal Immigration Minister Mark Miller says, I know you don't like immigrants. Let's watch this, because now he's like, he's saying, he's taken the Chris Dacey position on this
approach.
And he's like, look, I'm so smart.
Minister Miller, thank you. Are you going to take accountability for the destructive immigration policies that you have, sir? Excuse me, sir, that's a false misrepresentation of me. I actually appreciate all Canadians, but I don't appreciate our infrastructure being overrun with reckless policies that burden our hospitals, take jobs from young people, and take housing options away from our communities.
Housing.
So that's the fact. It's a simple supply and demand equation. We have too many people coming in and we cannot accommodate them. This has nothing to do with not liking immigrants. This has everything to do with liking Canadians and protecting our Canadian economy so that we can actually take these people in and actually accommodate them. So can you justify why we're taking in more than 1 million people a year, sir? Why?
It's very easy.
How many houses does Canada build, sir? Does Canada build enough dwellings to accommodate 1 million new people every year? Does our hospitals have enough places for 1 million new people needing health care every year, sir?
Dismissing us as racist does not solve the problem either. And it's a major problem with the rhetoric of your government.
Yes.
Do you think it's okay to call Canadian citizens racist because you want to avoid the conversation? We don't have, you said we have a problem with immigrants.
Sir, that is a misrepresentation. Awesome. That is dishonesty, and it's everything that I would expect from your despicable government. Yes, you are.
He came up to you respectfully and asked you a question.
Not liking immigrants, sir. You accuse me of not liking immigrants, sir. That's not true. Thank you.
Liar and a coward.
Yep, a liar and a coward. So that's Right Blend asking the questions, and then Chris Dacey pointing out that he will call you racist to shut down conversation, prickly questions on his policies. It's the new shut up. Is racist.
But this is what the Liberal Party of Canada does when it wants to shut down conversation, when it wants to not listen to dissenting voices, when it doesn't want to hear the concerns of regular everyday Canadians who are bringing their real concerns to government. They label you as a racist. They label you as a Islamophobe, as an extremist, as a racist, as a transphobe, as a homophobe. Like pick your slur. This is what the government of Canada thinks about you, regular Canadians when you bring up your real and valid concerns. Just the other day, I drove through downtown Regina and was just shocked, absolutely shocked at the amount of homeless people on the streets. And yet, we have this open door immigration policy that has forced the most vulnerable people out of their own homes. Rents may be decreasing because of an immigration, a very, very new immigration cap that the Liberals have just got onto.
Right.
But not enough to fix any of the homelessness problems or
No.
any of the issues that this is creating.
Right. Because wages are still down because we're
right.
still letting in all these temporary foreign workers.
Oh, just by the busload, by the busload. Yesterday in the chat, yesterday in the Rebel chat, I saw a screen cap of of Saskatchewan job postings, looking for temporary foreign workers. These are in rural areas of Saskatchewan that have more than enough people able and willing to work.
These are kids' jobs.
And these are absolute starter jobs, like entry level jobs that any teenager with a food safety certificate could do. And yet they are specific. Here it is. Here, this is absolutely insane. So at the very bottom there, we have the Red Barn in
Dairy
Moosomin,
Queen,
Saskatchewan. Dairy Queen. The Red Barn in Moosomin, Saskatchewan, famous for its burgers. I was actually just talking about the Red Barn with a buddy from Alberta.
Should go.
It is so good. But
They
here
should
they
go.
are looking specifically for temporary foreign workers to fill roles that young people in the town of Moosomin could absolutely do. So Mark Miller, what a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. But again, Mark Miller is part of that cohort of elites, right? That are insulated from feeling the consequences of their bad policy decisions. Nobody in the Liberal Party of Canada or government employee feels or sees the consequences of their bad decisions. And that is the disconnect that we have here.
Yeah, and there's a whole host of programs that incentivize employers to hire immigrants and temporary foreign workers over Canadians. There's a whole host of programs, and those should all be eliminated.
Well, they're getting grants, they're getting wage subsidies,
it makes economic sense. If you're an employer, it makes perfect sense. Why would you hire a Canadian kid for $15 an hour when you could hire a temporary foreign worker for the equivalent of 10?
Straight out of India. I read an account of a woman who had a conversation with somebody working in a Canadian grocery store recently. And she just got to talking to this kid, very young, saying, and obviously not from Canada, and said, well, how did you get this job at this very well-known Canadian grocery store? And the kid said, well, there I was in India, and I saw a job posting in Canada. They interviewed in India, brought them over, and that's it. This is how it's working. The pipelines of temporary foreign workers from their foreign country into Canada is so slick and so smooth and has been made so easy by the federal government that we need a clawback. We absolutely need a clawback. You're right, Sheila. Every part of this needs to be dismantled.
Yep. And it's funny how it took 3 trimesters worth of time for Mark Miller to become the racist he accused Chris Stacey of being.
It's really telling that, isn't it? That he eventually just came around, but his first response was, how dare you ask pointy questions of me, you racist, you racist, marginalizing, traditional extremist peon. Because that's their response. That's what the government thinks of you.
Someone from our web team did a search and checked if there are temporary foreign workers job postings for temporary foreign workers out my way. And they found for Fort Saskatchewan. So that's the closest major municipality, if you can call it a major municipality. I mean, it's an industrial and agricultural hub.
Holy crap. Oh, I'm just looking at it. Oh, this is going to blow your mind. This is absolutely going to blow your mind.
The Brand Hotel. So if you're from the prairies, you know these old hotels that are in downtown. This is not like your Best Western on the
Comfort Inn.
edge of Comfort Inn.
Yeah.
This is the old bricks and mortar, turn of the century hotel downtown, and all these little hotels downtown. Mostly they don't really function as hotels anymore. They're just sort of historic buildings with a bar in them.
Mm-hmm.
Your local dive bars in them. The Brand Hotel is hiring a temporary foreign worker as a manager.
Tell them the salary, Sheila Gunreed. Say the salary.
$30 to $35 an hour.
What on earth?
Assistant manager. So again, these are, and I'm sure because they can offer that much because there's a government top up, right?
The wage subsidy. When the government takes care of 50% of the wages, well then yeah, it makes it real. It gives it real incentive. Actually, looking at the bottom of this list, here we go. Hotel manager at the Comfort Inn and Suites. So this is
$37.50.
$37 an hour for a temporary foreign worker.
I think that's by the Cal Tire, if I recall correctly. Then there's the a private. We don't need to show that actually. Maybe we don't want to show that guy's name. Somebody wants a private childcare provider, as if there aren't nannies and babysitters available around here. I know several young ladies with their babysitting certificate. It's summertime. They're not in school. Assistant manager down at the Subway.
This is crazy. Just going back to that child care provider in a private home. So this is looking after somebody's a babysitter in someone's home, a babysitter, a part-time nanny, salary $21.91 an hour, and this person is maybe getting a wage subsidy from the government of Canada, because why else would it be on the government of Canada website? Just crazy.
It's atrocious. It's atrocious. Now, I know that the unemployment rate is actually quite low in beautiful downtown Fort Saskatchewan because of our close ties to industry, but still, it's summer. These are kid jobs. Like this is insane.
It is insane. This makes me look forward to Western
Long haul
separation.
truck driver. Yeah.
This makes me look forward to Western separation when we can be in charge of our own immigration numbers.
Wow. Home support worker. Anyway.
It's wild.
It's
just wild. So, yeah, just for the record, every single one of those jobs that's being advertised for temporary foreign workers could be made available for actual Canadians and are not.
Right. Speaking of problems of immigration, I think Tamara also has a piece on this. Homelessness in Toronto has more than doubled since 2021, according to latest street needs assessment. Wonder why? Could it be because all of the immigrants and refugees to Canada land in Toronto? It's more than doubled in the last 3 years, according to the city's latest street needs assessment. It was conducted in the field last October and finalized this spring, and found that an estimated 15,400, that's almost the population of Fort Saskatchewan.
That's crazy.
Were unhoused in Toronto last fall. In 2021, it was roughly 7,300.
Doubled their homeless population. And let's not forget Canada, that Toronto is another city that's wholly committed to DEI. Mayor Olivia Chow just announced a couple of weeks ago that they would be topping up the Toronto Pride Festival with hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, because Google and Home Depot pulled out. Let's also not forget that Toronto Islands has the world's longest rainbow sidewalk. The world's longest rainbow sidewalk. So while they are dumping money into crazy gender initiatives and festivals and all of these, shame initiatives, they have 15,000 people on the streets that are unhoused. And in a climate such as Canada's, this is very, very near to a death sentence. You cannot survive on the streets of Canada with our extreme shifts in temperature and expect these people to be okay. So I mean, how shameful for Toronto, how absolutely shameful for Toronto.
Also, could they maybe do something about the drivers of homelessness outside of the federal government's wild and crazy immigration policies? Could we maybe do something about the drug problem in Toronto, the supervised consumption sites? I saw that they're all up in arms because the province was going to close 5 of them. But you know, maybe we shouldn't facilitate the things that drive social and moral decay in our cities, like drug abuse.
Well,
Maybe,
we know that
maybe we
those,
could do that too.
yeah, we know that addiction. So whether it be
They're like this.
whether it be drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, and homelessness go hand in hand. When you can't be responsible when you are feeding an addiction, when you are actively feeding an addiction, all of your resources go towards feeding that addiction. And this is why we see people go from being contributing members of society into an addiction and falling into homelessness and crime and dysfunction. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what's important to Toronto? Pride sidewalks, longest one in the world. Well done,
Pride
Olivia Chow.
sidewalks and your mayor in her little dancing contests while the city burns around her.
Again, another person that's completely insulated from the consequences of her own decisions.
Yeah. Still on the immigration issue, and again, this story is broken by Blackhawks. This is once again a story, as I talked about the other day, of the federal government using, or sorry, excuse me, the Liberal Party using their exclusive access to federal polling research paid for by you, the taxpayer, to craft their electoral strategy. So I told you before, it was $1.6 million for them to poll Canadians out of the Privy Council about their views on the Americans. And they said, our greatest fear is the Americans, because they polled boomers in Toronto. And then, so what happened? Elbows up, right? That was they took that data that ended up in the hands of Liberal political operatives, and then it was turned into an election campaign slogan, right? And you paid for it. That's crossing the streams, as they say. Well, they did it again on immigration. Canadians in Privy Council focus groups. So that's government-funded focus groups that the PMO has access to. Question Cabinet's rationale for record high immigration quotas. A pollster's report on the findings was delivered to the government, which was being headed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, only weeks before, and not, it should be clear here that this information was not given to the Conservatives, right? This is government, so the government has it. Only weeks before then, Liberal leadership candidate Mark Carney announced that the system isn't working. So, asked to share their perspectives on the current state of Canada's immigration system, almost all described it as negative in terms, with a large number of the impression that the system was experiencing considerable strain at the moment, said the report. On balance, it was widely felt that the rate of immigration had been exceptionally high in recent years, and there was currently not enough housing, jobs, or other resources, RCMP labeled extremist, available in Canadian communities to meet the economic and social needs of newcomers. Literally everything Right Blend said to
Mark Miller,
but Mark Miller turned around and called he and Dacey racist, that they hate immigrants. But then the government, which was also the Liberals, took this and put it into their campaign strategy. So a gift from Canadian taxpayers, this internal polling data exclusive only to the people who had eyes on it, and then they used it as campaign materials.
You know what is just crazy about this is they won't listen to the citizens of Canada, even when we speak to them in the official languages, loud and clear, about our experience, the things we want and the things we need out of our federal government. They won't listen to the people of Canada. What they need is an expert panel of internal pollsters to validate what Canadians are saying before they'll take us seriously. And this is this just goes to show you the huge disconnect between the federal government and the people that elected them to represent them. I am so tired of having our actual valid concerns being ignored by the federal government only until it gets to such a crisis point, such a crux, that they have no option but to address it, but only after they've consulted with their panel of experts, mind you. Your opinions and my opinions don't matter unless they pay someone to tell them that they do. It is unhinged.
The date of the polling was January 20th. So just one trimester after Mark Miller called everybody a racist for thinking maybe
Wild.
we have too many immigrants in this country. So they probably had the polling sort of ongoing during that time.
At the time. Yeah, at the time. Isn't that interesting? Well, Mark Miller showed himself to be a thoroughly useless politician, and his naked contempt for the people that he's supposed to be representing is really deplorable. It really is. How this
Yeah.
guy remains employed by the federal government is beyond us.
He seems awful frail too. Have you noticed all the men in the Liberal government seem frail? Like,
He looks he looks like a walking corpse, to be completely honest. Like that pallid skin, the sunken eyes, the lurching down the street.
Tutankhamun's mummy is what he looks like. His skin is just stretched over his bones.
Looks like he's coated in Vaseline as to not crack open. Yeah.
Yeah, they opened his sarcophagus in the morning and dust just, anyways.
Oh,
Yeah.
remember that one time we showed a picture of his hand, his fingers?
Yes.
We saw Mark Miller's fingers up close, and we just wanted to. Ugh. It's not good. Not a healthy man, that's for sure. And this is the guy that gets to tell you what to do, Canada. This guy.
All right. He's got your best interests at heart. It doesn't look like he's taking care of himself all that well. Okay, we've got this from Canada's envoy. No, sorry, the Palestinian ambassador to Canada. This is what she's saying. She feels Ottawa is on the brink of officially recognizing the statehood for her people, as she also takes note of tougher language from Canada on Israel's actions in Gaza. She says accountability means everything to the Palestinian people. You're still holding the hostages.
Yeah.
That's all we're looking for. Actually, quite frankly, I think that's what the Israelis are looking for. Said Mona Abu-Amara, who is at the end of her 4-year term is the chief representative of the Palestinian General Delegation to Canada. Canada could have done better and must do better. I'm sorry, we're not taking lessons in morality from people who are still holding hostages. And I will be appalled, and I'll become one of the greatest champions of Alberta independence if Canada recognizes Palestinian statehood after what they did on October 7th. You do not reward butchery and terrorism with a state. You're giving them what they wanted. You're showing the world that terrorism works if you do that.
And this is completely this piece comes to us originally from CTV News, and it is completely irresponsible for CTV News to platform ideas such as this from the Palestinian ambassador to Canada, because what this is doing, and we see this over and over and over in the mainstream media, is the floating of ideas through the mainstream media that start a lot like this, where a high level official, this one, the Palestinian ambassador to Canada, says something that deviates from the opinions of actual Canadians, okay? But what they're doing is making it palatable for the mainstream media user base, we'll say, to accept these ideas as something that we all are accepting of, when in fact, I think a great majority of Canadians would disagree with this, do not want to get involved with cozying up to the Palestinian state, to the terrorists that support it, or for the destruction of Israel. So shame on CTV for this, for platforming this.
Yeah, and she says some other crazy things in there that just are not true, and CTV publishes it without skepticism or even context.
Yes.
So she says she She cited comments made by Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand, made in May, describing Israel's military campaign as aggression caused against the Palestinian and the Gazan people in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
They want their hostages back. In those comments, the minister took the unconventional step of citing Palestine instead of the Palestinian territories. And Anand also said that by restricting humanitarian aid in Gaza, Israel was using food as a political tool. Now, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was launched by Israel, or was launched, it's sort of an Israeli-backed thing. It's backed by American and the Israeli government, and it bypasses traditional relief groups. It's funded by the Americans and the Israelis to provide food aid into Gaza. Why? Because you cannot count on the UN to provide food aid. So while Anand is saying that Canada or that the US and Israel are blocking food aid, they actually are backing an organization that is providing food aid, even though Palestinians are some of the most well-funded, quote-unquote, refugees on the face of the earth, but the food aid doesn't get to them because the local terrorist warlord takes it.
Well, that's exactly right. And the same pathways that the food aid takes to get into these areas are the same pathways that that weapons get into these areas. So this is why we can't trust the locals to manage their own food aid distribution. This is why America and Israel must be able to manage it. What's really interesting in this piece is this ambassador to Palestine said in a June 10th consultation event, Canada co-hosted with Qatar and Mexico at the United Nations headquarters on how to peacefully resolve the Israel-Palestine conflict and advance a two-state solution. So the UN is hosting trilateral talks on how to advance this Palestinian stance on kicking Israel out of its own territory. This is wild.
Like we're supposed to forget how all this started. A terror wave swept into Israel from Gaza, which Israel turned over to the Palestinians, and they even dug up their dead. A wave swept out of Gaza into Israel, where 1,200 plus people were murdered in the most horrific of ways. We know what happened because the terrorists themselves recorded it.
We all saw saw those
it.
horrific images. 251 people were taken hostages. They still hold roughly 50 of them.
Yeah.
50 people being held in torturous, awful conditions.
In terror tunnels. So that aid money that they get, they use it to build tunnels. When Israel left, they left behind greenhouses and all kinds of agriculture. It was not a wasteland when they left. It was actually kind of a resort and agricultural hub. And they took all of that and pivoted it towards terror. Instead of growing food for their people, they dug up the irrigation pipes and used them for bombs. Anyway.
Sad state of affairs, Canada, that we would be taking this stance. And again, shame on CTV for this.
Just
deplorable.
This is Palestinian propaganda. Let's go to this tweet from my friend Michelle Rumpel-Garner. She's commenting on a judge's ruling here, and this is atrocious. She says, this ruling is unreal. By the way, Michelle is the member of parliament for Calgary Nose Hill. So she says, oops, I've just ended up in a very wrong place. She says, this ruling is unreal. This pervert, of course it's out of Ontario, this pervert who isn't a permanent resident. So what is he doing here? He's just a visitor, I guess, temporary resident. Was given 90 days house arrest with a conditional sentence so that it wouldn't go against his permanent record, so he would have a chance to stay in Canada. And then she lists the court file, and he was
He exposed.
committing an indecent act with the intent to insult or offend, contrary to section 173.1. On December 9th, 2023, the victim was alone in her basement apartment when Mr. Singh, then working as a Bell Canada technician,
Oh, hired as a temporary foreign worker. Yes.
And we know that they don't have to, temporary foreign students don't have to go through certain protocols, responded to a service call to come to her new residence and install an installation cable for her Wi-Fi router. After using the victim's bathroom, Mr. Singh came out with his pants unzippered and his member exposed to the victim. He then left his junk out of his pants for a period of time of some 20 minutes. Can you imagine the horror of this woman? During this time, he made inappropriate comments to the victim about her physical attractiveness and asked her untoward questions about her dating status and whether he could find her a job, with, I think maybe this means with his employer. The victim was traumatized by this incident. The Crown wanted 60 days in jail, 1 year probation, an NDA, a non-communication order, which would have resulted in his deportation. And they said, the counsel for Mr. Singh argued that a conditional sentence is a suitable sentence. It would be in the best interest of Mr. Singh. I don't care. And contrary to the public interest. That's wrong. Alternatively, counsel argues that a suspended sentence would be appropriate given that Mr. Singh has abided by his undertaking following his arrest.
Oh, but he's been such a good boy after his arrest. So you just gotta leave him alone, Canada. We just gotta leave the guy be. See, there's this was just all lost in translation. You see, where he comes from, it's normal to go into women's actual residences, expose yourself for over 20 minutes and do these devious things. Totally normal where he comes from. Like, this is insane. He should be on the first plane out of here, the absolute first plane out of here. Where? I don't care. I actually don't care, because what this shows is that Canadian women aren't even safe inside the walls of their own homes.
Yeah, it says Mr. Singh is 23 years old and a resident of India. Perfect. Off you go. You're India's problem. He has no prior criminal record. Well, I guess that we know of. I think
it could have been expunged. Could have been expunged by the government of Canada.
But also, I don't think you get in that much trouble for these sorts of things in India. He came to Canada on a student visa.
You don't say.
That's how we don't know if he has a criminal record in India, because he came on a student visa, which, as we heard from Raquel Doncho yesterday on the show, that you will not be screened for criminality if you come in on a student visa.
Just wild.
Then he was issued a work permit by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada in November of 2022 that expires in November 2025. So he's coming in on all different kinds of tracks. You're not supposed to do it that way. Mr. Singh has no dependents in Canada. His goal is to become a permanent resident and then sponsor his family members to come to Canada. Nope, out.
Goodbye, get out.
Goodbye, I'll help you pack.
Get out right now.
Me and several male family members will help you pack. Out. Get out.
And his work permit is still valid, even though he's been convicted of this. So he could still be working for his employer, or one very, very, very similar to his last employer. Like, this story just highlights the absolute depravity of our immigration system and how it is failing Canadians.
This is a horror show. We have to hit an ad break. We are like 55 minutes into the show, have not hit an ad break. I want to tell you guys about a couple of things. First thing, Rebel News had its happy birthday back in February. It was our 10th birthday. I'm not a day oneer. I'm like a year oneer, but I'm not a day oneer. And I've explained my circumstances around that before. My excuse to not go back to work full time, she went to school full time. And then so I didn't have an excuse to turn down Ezra Levant anymore. And it has been a love affair with journalism ever since. So, but we are turning 10 years old. We've already turned 10 years old, but we want to celebrate with all of you. And, you know, February, it was the election campaign, and the Liberals were running a leadership, and Parliament was prorogued. There was so much news. So we just couldn't even plan it. We were doing journalism every day, and we still do journalism every day. And we just decided there's always going to be a reason not to have the party. So let's have the party. So if you go to happybirthdayrebel.com, you show the screen again because I need to read from it. Thursday, September 18th, 6 p.m., Carriage House Hotel and Conference Center in Calgary. Live music, cocktails, snackety snacks, selfies and meet and greet, photos with your favorite journalists. Join us in Calgary for a celebration marking 10 years of journalism, truth-telling, and standing up for freedom. And as they say in the website copy here, it's a celebration of what we've built together. And I cannot stress that enough because we will never take a penny from the government. We only live on. We only fight these fights because of you. You have helped us beat Justin Trudeau's debates commission in court twice. You have helped us help people all across the country through something that started with a little project called Fight the Fines, which grew into the Democracy Fund, a major civil liberties charity. You've helped us tell the stories of the forgotten people. You've helped us make documentaries to put down a marker in time to document the things the government either wants us to forget or not even talk about. The Freedom Convoy, medical assistance in dying, the attacks on the churches. We've done documentaries on all of these only because of you. So how could we not include you in our birthday party? So
plan to come. Plan to come, Rebel viewers. This is going to be an evening not to forget.
I'm going to dress like it's prom. That's what I'm going to do. You want to do that?
Girl,
Let's do it.
all day, every day. All day, every day. We're going to take awkward prom photos with you guys. Okay, I'm going to get a background. We're going to get a prom, some sort of prom background. And this is going to be our absolute best night of our lives. Coming up in Calgary in September. Get your tickets. Sheila, tell them where?
happybirthday.rebel.com.
We want to see you all there.
We'd
Like
love to see that.
in your prom finery.
Oh, somebody please show up in a powder blue tuxedo with a bow tie.
I'm gonna.
Please.
I'm gonna.
David Menzies probably has one of those, if I had to guess. Okay, one more message before we hit an ad break. We'll come back and do we'll see how much of the last few things of the show that we can breeze through, time permitting. So, let's ask, what is the West Place in Canada? The reason I'm asking that is because somebody is posing that question. Don't miss this year's Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference in Calgary. It's on September 5th and 6th. It includes speakers such as Tristan Hopper, Lord Conrad Black, Premier Daniel Smith, and Preston Manning. And these things generally sell out. So you want to go, well, not while we're on the show, but after the show. Early bird rates are available until August 4th. Reserve your tickets today at canadastrongandfree.network, and you'll get more details there. So, and you can see the list of speakers. And again, personal plug, personal seal of approval on Marco Navarogini. He's a really important thinker in the Western independence movement. He's thought about the implications of being a landlocked place and what that would mean for trade deals and moving our products. And he's thought a lot about the other places in the world who said, you know what, we're just not getting along. We'll go it our own way. And so it doesn't have to be an adversarial fight. But if the Liberals want it, I guess let's rumble. Anyway, so let's hit an ad break and then we'll come right back.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of assault-style firearms.
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted. While criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. By delaying and dismantling unjust legislation, by confronting policy at its source, like on the global stage at the United Nations, through our unmatched record of political lobbying and our Save Firearms program, actively saving firearms from government crushers in real time. And we're not done yet. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Canadians know the national anthem, They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
Alberta powers Canada, but Ottawa keeps limiting our potential. The Alberta Next panel wants your ideas to strengthen our sovereignty within a united Canada. Help decide what's next for Alberta. Visit alberta.ca/next.
All right. Let's get into this article from one of the good ones still working the mainstream media, Jamie Sarkanak.
She's awesome. She's just awesome.
She's great. Liberal funded charity. You and I have talked about this a lot, about how the Liberals give money to their favorite NGO gender wang charities to do the things the feds are not allowed to do. So the feds are not allowed to wander into provincial jurisdiction like healthcare.
Right.
But
there's nothing stopping them from giving them bags of gold. Okay,
exactly.
Giving non-governmental organizations, so this is outside of the federal government proper, but they give their friends in radical gender NGOs the bags of money to do their dirty work for them.
Right. And so we've talked about how in Saskatchewan, it was EGAL.
Yes.
Who get gazillions of your money from the federal government.
Yeah, same as UR Pride, the University of Regina Pride group.
Yep.
Same, funded by the federal government to overreach into provincial jurisdiction.
And Faye Johnstone's racket, let's not forget those guys. They organized against conservatives during the federal election campaign.
Sure did.
And they were getting money from the Liberal government to do exactly that. You know what you get when you give these gender wang charities money. And
you know what? Just real quick, would have been great for the Conservative Party of Canada to bring this up during the election period. Oh, it would have been a winner. But no. Anyway, here we are. These radical NGOs are now interfering in Alberta.
Yeah.
Tell them how, Sheila Gunn Reid.
So they are challenging our law, which restricts medical gender transition on minors. They're challenging it. So these childless, self-sterilized weirdos who are fully funded by the federal government, by the radical gender extremists in the federal government, they give these people money to
like millions of dollars. Millions
to
of
launch
dollars.
legal action to undo the will of Albertans in court.
Well, to undermine the province of Alberta and undermine the province of Saskatchewan.
Yeah,
if it weren't for these federally funded NGOs, there would have been no challenge to our laws, and yet here we are. What Saskatchewan did right off the bat was drop the notwithstanding clause. For the first time in Saskatchewan's history on a cultural issue, they dropped the notwithstanding clause. Didn't help though, because the notwithstanding clause is supposed to be a great big stop button to any federal overreach. It was put in our constitution for a reason, knowing that there may be differences in opinion. from the federal level to the provincial level, and it is a way for the provincial governments to stress their autonomy. You can't overrule us. It's a emergency stop button. In Saskatchewan, this was supposed to stop any challenge from federally funded NGOs from going forward, and yet it didn't. Yet it didn't.
Now, in Saskatchewan, they're pulling a unique end run around consequences for teachers. That's why they're doing that.
It is wild.
What they're doing in Saskatchewan is they know they can't stop the implementation of the law, because the notwithstanding clause means notwithstanding whatever crap you were trying to pull in the courts. This law will remain, as they say, operational. So the law will remain operational. What they are doing in court is trying to have the law ruled unconstitutional, but operational, which means it would mean nothing in practice. It wouldn't rescind the law. But what it means is these teachers who will flout the law.
When they are. They are.
And they are.
In public all the time. Yes.
The teachers who will flout the law and not alert parents that they're teaching weird things or that their kids are going by a different name in school or whatever, when they flout the law, they can go and say, well, what they were asking me to do has been ruled unconstitutional. Thus, I can't face professional sanctions for it. So what it means is the law is operational, but the people who are supposed to comply with the law won't get in trouble.
That's right. That's exactly right. And this is happening in nearly every single elementary and high school across the province of Saskatchewan. I can speak specifically for the city of Regina and Saskatoon. Every single school has a gender and diversity club. Well, guess what they're doing in those gender and diversity clubs? They're socially transitioning kids behind their parents' back still every single day. And the government and the teachers union are at such an impasse, but this is EGAL's way. EGAL, by the way, gets millions of dollars in federal funding, 71% funded by the federal government.
Same bad actors and they're the bad actors in Saskatchewan. They're the bad actors in Alberta.
They're the bad actors across the country of Canada. EGAL is not an organization that should be federally funded, number one, but that should be tolerated by society. Number two. But here we go with EGAL in Alberta doing the exact same thing. They're challenging Alberta's laws that are protecting minors from gender ideology and specifically the medicalization of minors to medically transition them or surgically transition them, thus causing them irreparable and lifelong harms. Here comes EGAL with their bags of money to challenge the government of Alberta on their laws that are protecting children. And now would be the time, Danielle Smith, for you to also drop the notwithstanding clause.
You know, I asked her about that because I asked her about it in a press conference. I wasn't satisfied with the answer. So when I got a chance to sit down with her for an end of the year interview, I said to her, look, I wasn't satisfied with the answer that you gave. I'm going to ask it again. And she said, look, I want this to play out in the court because we firmly believe that this will win in court. And I think the idea is if this wins in court, it stops this baloney from happening in other provinces, right? And so it'll set a legal precedent. So but she also said, look, if it comes time that this will be overturned, we're dropping the hammer of the notwithstanding clause.
Okay. So that's assuming that our judiciary isn't absolutely overrun with left-wing activists. And we know that I agree. It is.
Because they got an injunction already.
And that's right. And I really, I would be on that boat too. I would be on the boat too, where it's like, listen, we're just going to let this play out in the courts so we can lick it once and for all. However, when there are lives of children at stake, when there are children being harmed, when there are children being walked down this path, and it starts in schools with social transition, with pronoun changes, with name changes, with gender and diversity clubs or gender and sexual identity clubs in schools. When it starts there, they are put on the path of medicalization. And once they are put on the path of medicalization in Canada with mature minors, at the age of 13, you can make decisions for yourself. This is the way it is in Canada. This is how 13-year-olds can have abortions and their parents don't know about it. When there are children being harmed, we do not have any time to waste. This has gone on for long enough, and it must be stopped as soon as possible. The end. Anything else is unacceptable. This entire thing has gotten so out of hand. We've seen it happen across the world, and we've seen it dialed back across the world, whether it be Denmark or Sweden or the UK or the US. Canada is the lone holdout as it pertains to gender issues, especially as it pertains to children, and it must stop immediately. There is no room for argument on this. We do not harm children. That is the pinnacle of our society, of a civilized society, is that we do not harm children. And we know that gender ideology does. We know that child transition does. And we know that the medicalization of minors will have devastating long-term consequences. We do not harm children. This must stop as soon as possible, right now, by any means necessary.
Sorry, did you say Belgium?
What did I? Denmark.
Denmark. Okay. Denmark, Sweden.
Yeah.
Denmark, Sweden, the UK, well-known hardline conservative places, right?
And they've rolled it back.
Yeah. Let's skip ahead because the Ottawa protester story, we're going to have the journalist involved on the show tomorrow, Karima. So we will,
I can't wait.
We'll just talk about that tomorrow because I know we're running out of time. Let's go to the National Police Federation. So this is the RCMP members union. They represent 20,000 normal RCMP officers, not the crazy lady that we heard from in the beginning. These are the guys who you'll meet them at your gun range. They say, we're disgusted by the Parole Board of Canada's decision to grant day parole to Pingoatakolala, who is convicted of murdering Constable Douglas Scott in 2007. This is a slap in the face. Oh, hi, Triggy. To his family, colleagues, and every officer who risks their life to protect our communities. And just for context, this happened in Nunavut. Constable Douglas Scott was 20 years old at the time. And Kolala was sentenced to life in prison with no parole eligibility for 25 years. And not even 18 years later, he's being released on day parole. The decision is not only profoundly disrespectful to Constable Scott's family and colleagues, but anyways, they go on from there. He was killed while responding to a call for help, serving and protecting his community. Kolala accessed his parole under the now repealed Faint Hope Clause. And the National Police Federation believes this decision undermines public safety and the values of our justice system that it claims to uphold. And they're calling on the Parole Board and the Government of Canada to reconsider this decision immediately. So it sounds like the Faint Hope Clause is, it was repealed, that, if you're sentenced, you're sentenced. But because he was sentenced prior to the repeal of that, so some 18 years ago, he gets to still access that. It didn't change retroactively. So he's doing an end run. He's jumping through a loophole, and the Parole Board, for some reason, is letting him. They could easily just say, actually, no, you should at least sit there for 7 more years before we talk about this.
I've said for years that the Parole Board of Canada should be required to house the convicts that they let out early in their own guest bedrooms.
Or put them in the house next door so they know how the community feels.
Exactly that, because just like the RCMP, just like the federal government, just like the Liberal Party of Canada, members of the Parole Board of Canada do not suffer the consequences of their policy decisions or of the decisions that they make. They are not the people that were devastated by this loss, and it really is such a terrible loss. 20 years old. I mean, that kid had his whole entire life.
What a difference he could have made,
I mean, it is just an unfathomable loss, especially to our country, and especially to his family and loved ones. And when the Parole Board of Canada releases convicts like this early, regardless of what loophole he jumped through, it is a slap in the face to victims. It is a slap in the face to the community that's going to have to absorb this person back, right? Like I'm of the belief that if you prove yourself to be this unhinged, right? Like if you can do this once, you can do this again. Of course you
Yeah.
can do this again. And that should be considered. But the way that the Parole Board of Canada makes their decisions is not in the best interest of the community. It's not in the best interest of the victims. It is always in the best interest of the convict. And this is an abomination. And really, my heart just goes out to this kid's family, 20 years old. I mean, there's nothing worse.
Yeah, it's atrocious. And like the parole board didn't have to grant parole. That's the thing. Like he could.
That's the thing.
That's the thing. Let's say, even through a legal loophole, he's allowed to apply because of the faint hope clause, which still applies to him. They could say, on principle, no. On principle, no.
Mm-hmm.
But they gave it to him.
Mm-hmm. Another thoroughly shameful public institution in Canada that has lost or abandoned their mandate.
Yeah.
Parole Board of Canada, shame.
Yeah, and I say it all the time on the show. Like I'm not against redemption. That's why I think there should be, like, as they say in the United Kingdom, like your conviction should be considered spent after a certain amount of time where you have lived in the community and done great things. And I think the record suspension process is too onerous for people who are convicted of minor things many years ago, and it actually is prohibitive to people trying to make their way out of the socioeconomic class that they seem to be damned to because they have this criminal conviction, and it prevents, traveling both ways. I think the United States is hard on this, and Canadians are hard on this too. I think, as I said repeatedly, a long-haul trucker who was convicted of assault in a bar fight when he was 18 years old, and now he's 40 and he wants to come to Jasper, let him. Let him. I let him. And I think it goes the other way too. The Americans are very tough on Canadians who do this too. And I think there should be some mercy around that sort of stuff, but not this. This is spent, look at this. He spent less time in jail than that young man was on the face of the earth.
That is just wild. And although I do believe in redemption, the risks to community, and the further traumatization of this young man's family must be upheld over any rehabilitation or redemption of the convicted.
These are one of those things where you can rehab, and you can rehab in jail. You can go on to do great things behind bars.
And I would really, in Canada, I remember there was a case in Saskatoon many years ago where a woman killed a whole car full of really beautiful, vibrant teenagers, and we talked to their families on the radio. And one of the things that isn't considered is what the victims' families would like to have happen, because I do believe that we should be concentrating on their healing and resolving their trauma before that of the convict. And that's something that just does not happen in Canada, unfortunately.
Yeah. Let's end on the daily cringe. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought this was John Tory, but no, it's Rosie O'Donnell. And Rosie O'Donnell blames Trump for the Texas tragedy because he cut wasteful spending at the National Weather Service. So let's see her. God, she looks like Deputy Dog more and more all the time. Let's listen to this. Didn't she leave the country?
What a horror story in Texas. Flash floods in Texas, the Guadalupe River. 51 missing, 51 dead, more missing. children at a camp. And you know, when the president guts all of the early warning systems and the weathering forecast abilities of the government, these are the results that we're going to start to see on a daily basis, because he's put this country in so much danger by his horrible, horrible decisions and this ridiculously immoral bill that he just signed into law. As Republicans cheered, people will die as a result, and they've started already. Shame on him. Shame on every GOP sycophant who's listening and following the disastrous decisions of this mentally incapacitated POTUS.
What?
Hard to believe.
It is hard to believe because it's not true.
No, well, that's exactly the thing. Shut the hell up, Rosie O'Donnell. The Guadalupe River has experienced numerous significant floods, particularly in Texas Hill Country, where rapid runoff from heavy rains can cause water levels to rise dramatically. Verified major flood events have occurred on the Guadalupe River in 1838, 1848, 1868, 1872, 1906, 1913, 1921, 1936, 1952, 1972, 1973, and 1987. Was Trump there for that, Rosie O'Donnell? For all of those other events? This is geography and weather that happened.
Yeah,
this is not Trump's fault. This is not Trump's fault. And for anybody who's ever try to install a water level meter, they are infamously hard to be able to predict these kinds of weather events and fast water rising. And this is over a huge geographic area. And although what happened on the Guadalupe River this week in Texas, in East Texas, and our hearts go out to you guys in East Texas right now. It was not the fault of President Trump. This is a naturally occurring event that Rosie O'Donnell should be ashamed of herself for putting this on the shoulders of President Trump.
Well, and what she said is patently untrue, that cuts to the National Weather Service prevented people from being alerted.
Right.
From the AP of all places, the National Weather Service office in New Braunfels, which delivers forecasts for Austin, San Antonio, and surrounding areas, had extra staff on duty during the storms. Where the office would typically have 2 forecasters on duty during clear weather, they had up to 5 people on staff. There were extra people in here that night, and that's typical in every weather service office. You staff up for an event, you bring people on for overtime and hold people over. And they issued several flood warnings. This had to do with timing, when this happened at 1:14 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this also has to do with the soil conditions of East Texas. They're very clay rich. Clay does not absorb water well. It actually repels water. And so this leads to really, really high runoff into rivers. So rain falls on hills, it runs down the sides of the hills and into low-lying rivers, which then break their banks and flood over flat surfaces, the flat topography of the area.
They're just so crazy that they will blame a weather catastrophe on someone for political reasons. They did this in Alberta during the Calgary floods, and it was very damaging to a town called High River, which was at the time Danielle Smith's constituency. She worked overtime just saving people's dogs. People were texting her saying, "My dog's in my house," and because she was the local MLA, she could go and get their dog, and she had these crates of animals, and she just was a real hero of the floods. But anyways, people were like, "This is because conservatives don't care about climate change," and it's like, do you hear yourself?
And we hear this every time there's a forest fire. We hear this every time there's a forest fire. It's then offloaded onto climate change. Well, if you paid more attention to climate change, you are never going to stop Mother Nature. Mother Nature is never going to stop creating weather. And it's time that we get off this alarmist bus and do the best we can with the knowledge we have, and try and protect people. But we've all seen Mother Nature and her wrath. And when she decides to lash out, there's practically nothing that can stop her.
Fewer people die now in weather events than ever in human
Than
history.
any other time. That's right.
Because we have these advanced warning systems. But the reason I bring up the High River situation was because, like, the answer is quite literally in the name of the town.
Right.
It is on a floodplain. It's the Highwood River was prone to flooding, so much so that they named the town
High River.
High River. But yet it was my SUV that done it. Like, my goodness. Okay.
That's what the climate zealots will say anyway. And in any case, it's just not cool. It's not cool to
it's just
to politicize weather events to advance a left-wing narrative. It's not cool.
It's just, and where is she? She's in Dublin. Like, didn't she leave the United States?
Yeah, she did.
I believe Ireland has some problems of its own lately. Zip it. You left. You left. So, okay, you're gone. Please quit haunting the United States with your nonsense, like some sort of John Tory poltergeist. We've got Nana Awake gives us $10 and says, when judges protect immigrants and criminals over citizens, Canadians need to accept there's no saving it. Alberta must separate to break this corrupt system. It's the only hope of protecting Canada.
Amen. Nana Awake. Amen. I agree. To be in charge of our own judiciary, our own currency, our own immigration, our own healthcare, our own systems, our own institutions. I mean, nothing excites me more. So thank you so much, Nana Awake. That's
maybe we'll elect our own judges here. I would love to elect our own local sheriffs. Give me a Grady Judd.
Girl, without question, this is what we are doing. These lifetime appointments of left-wing activists are over in the new country. Okay, here comes my favorite sentence again. Okay, right.
In the new
country, we are going to have elected positions, because if you don't do your job and if you abandon your mandate, then you are shown the door.
Yes.
That's just how it's going to work.
All right. We are half an hour over the top of the show, but it's just an opportunity to get paid to talk to my best friend, which is fine by me. We should wrap up the show. I got to get into a weekly meeting right away. Lise, thanks so much for hanging out with me 2 days in a row. And as always, we'll talk very, 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 very soon.
Well, babe, this is my pleasure. As you know, these are my favorite 2 days of the week, and I will see you guys. Take care, everyone, okay? Take care, everyone. It's not as bad as it looks. It's not as bad as it looks. And I'll see you next week. Same place, same time.
Thanks to everybody who works behind the scenes at Rebel News to put the show together for you so that it's there however you want to consume it. Thanks to you guys who pitch in a little bit to keep the lights on here at Rebel News. We could not do it without you. And thanks to all of you who do the free and easy, very easy thing of sharing the show or a clip of the show with someone you think needs to see it. It helps us get around the intense internet censorship to speak directly to you. And as my friend David Menzies always says, stay safe and stay sane.